Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. I decided to make this little short video basically because everyone has been talking for a long time now about my favorite vacation spot, Las Vegas. And you know what? I wanted to give my 2 cents worth about this. So I would love for you to watch this through and share your opinions. Make some comments about what I'm thinking. Yes, I am, as many of you know, if you don't know, I am a Canadian born and bred, and I did not get the memo, or I chose to ignore the memo about not going to Vegas as some kind of a protest for all the tariffs and things like that. So I just recently made a trip to Vegas. It was a very clandestine sort of trip. Very few people knew I went. I went, had a great time, came back, and that was by my own personal choice. But I want to share some of my observations with a lot of the talk that's been going on about Vegas is dying, it's dead, and my feelings on that. A lot of what has been said, in fact, most of what has been said is quite true. Where I maybe take a little bit of a different view, I call it the chicken and egg phenomenon of, the old saying of which came first, the chicken or the egg. And I'm going to share that thoughts with you. And I think I have even some valid evidence to back that up. First, let me say, is Vegas tourism down? Yes, it is. I speak as a tourist. I've always only ever been a tourist. Even when I used to go to Vegas for work, it was, maybe 40, 50% work. The rest was being a tourist. And, that's the perspective from which I'm coming in. Now, this most recent trip, I noticed that the plane going down was basically half empty. I'd never seen that in ages. Coming back, the plane was full. But a lady I was sitting beside said when she came down, again, same thing, plane was basically half empty. Now, these are planes coming from Toronto, Canada. So these are essentially, mostly Canadians coming down. So yes, that is down. Now, there's a lot of talk about, Vegas has become very expensive. Vegas has become too expensive for average people to go down. And is this true? Yes, of course it's true. Vegas is much more expensive. Where I'm going to talk about the chicken and egg thing is I don't believe Vegas changed for the sake of changing, even though you keep hearing a lot of comments about corporate greed and stuff like that. Well, I will challenge anybody watching here to tell me, you name me a corporation that isn't greedy. That's the nature of corporations, and that's whether you're running a casino business or selling toilet paper or industrial steel. It doesn't matter. It's still the nature of corporations. What I will say, and what my belief is that the Vegas visitor has changed. And that has happened over the last 15, 20 years, and Vegas responds to that. And Vegas is responding not for people of my generation and even 10, 15, even 20 years younger than I am. They're aiming at the 20 and 30-year-olds because they're the people that Vegas wants to turn into regular visitors that'll come back every year, maybe a couple times a year, or maybe once every couple of years, but some regularity into that, which, people of my generation have been doing that for a long time. Now, why am I saying about the chicken and the egg? Well, a couple of really important facts. Fact number one is, again, I don't care what kind of a business you're in, but you do not change a business model if it's successful. Now, I don't need a PhD in economics to say that. It's just a simple fact. If a business model is working and you're making money, you don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's simple, common sense. Now, yes, you tweak it a little bit. Maybe you make some subtle changes or you experiment something because you want to gain a competitive edge, but you don't throw it out the window and try and replace it with something else. That business model for many, many decades in Vegas has been get people in, get into the casino, gamble your money in the casino, and in return for that, we're going to give you cheap rooms or even free rooms. if you've established yourself there. Cheap food, no problem. Every casino had its own, 24-hour cafe where you could get your bacon and eggs and get a hamburger and get a simple steak or whatever. They had their fancy, steak houses, whatever. But these were places to the actual casinos. They all basically had buffets. You had a cheap breakfast, a cheap lunch, a cheap dinner. Not uncommon to spend $2-3 for a breakfast. Maybe $15 to $20 for the dinner buffet, and maybe they're including prime rib and crab legs and that. Because the idea was, we want you in the casino. Go have your meal, fill your belly, come back to the gaming tables and the slot machines. Come and gamble your money. Booze, no problem. It flew freely. They weren't sitting there looking with little lights going on the bar to see has you bet enough or whatever, because they figured if you have a few drinks, you get a little bit feeling good, maybe you're going to gamble a little bit more. Now, what changed? People don't gamble as much, number one. Big change. People didn't want just simple buffets anymore. A phenomenon I've seen in the last 15, 20 years. Everybody's a foodie now. Whether or not they can even barely boil water or prepare a meal, no, everyone's a foodie, and they're doing food reviews on chain hamburger places and stuff. Like, give me a break. But anyway, that's what people wanted. They don't want a burger place. No, you go to Gordon Ramsay burgers. So you get celebrity chefs and this sort of thing. The buffets, I don't want cafeteria style simple food. No, I want a dining experience. Okay, they'll give you that. I don't want a simple cocktail. Yeah, a gin and tonic, rum and coke. No, I don't want that. I want the fancy cocktails. You put on the glass and the smoke comes up. Okay, they cost more money. And again, because the gambling has gone down, casino's going to make its money some way. It's not a charity. It is, in fact, a business. So putting it very simply, if 20 years ago you went to Vegas with a couple of $1,000s and you wanted to spend as much of that as you could gambling because you thought, hey, I might win a couple of jackpots, I may come back with a whole lot of money, way more than I went down with. In return, Vegas gave you all this stuff. Now, I don't gamble. No, I'm not going to gamble. They're still going to take your money. Fancier rooms, resort fees, parking fees, $25, $30 cocktails, nice lounges, not a simple bar, but nice lounge. You can sit down and have the Vegas experience. Fine. That's what you want. That's what we're going to give you. But we're still going to take your money. Now, do I have any proof for that? Actually, I do. As many streamers have talked about, and these are figures from the Nevada gaming thing. It's all public knowledge stuff. The average Vegas visitor stays 3.5 nights. And of course, you laugh and say, how do you get that? But when you think about it, a lot stay 4 nights, a lot stay 3 nights. The average of that is 3.5 nights. And the average person is gambling $200 to $250 a day. Now, that's not insignificant. Don't get me wrong. That's significant money. But number one, that's average. And simple arithmetic will tell you if person one spends $0 and person two spends $400, that average is $200. But person one didn't spend any money gambling. So that's the thing with average. And the mind-blowing fact to me is that my mom and dad, when they used to go to Vegas in the in the late 70s and in the 80s, and we're talking like middle class, actually when they started off lower middle class people, would save their money and every couple of years or whatever would go a week down to Vegas. That's more or less what they would spend then. That was basically their budget, a couple of $100 each a day that they would spend gambling. And that's what they went to Vegas for, was to gamble. Now, if you allow for inflation, that should easily be 3 or 4 times more in 2025 dollars. So now you're talking, $800 to $1,000 a day gambling. Now, what was my experience? Okay, people say yes, you have 6 to 5 blackjack, you have 000, even I heard quad zero roulette, and yeah, different things have done. Minimums have gone up. If you're not going to get the volume, you might as well make the money on the higher income people, the people that are going to spend the money anyway. But that, again, going back to the chicken and the egg thing, I'm blaming that on the people that don't want, and I'm not trying to advocate gambling, but I'm saying that was the root of the Vegas business model. That's what Vegas always was. And as people are changing that, they're thinking 30 years ago, and a lot depends on what you want to play. 20 years ago, I could go to Vegas and I could sit down on a variety of video poker machines, which is what I prefer to play mostly. And let's say a quarter denomination, 5 credits, that's $1.25 max bet with a return to player percentage somewhere in the 97 to over 99% payback. Okay, very good. Better than any odds you're going to get on a slot machine. $1.25 max bet in a variety of different poker games. Now, in 2025, the same damn thing. I can play the same machines with the same percentage, the same minimums. Slot machines. You could play a 2-coin, 2 quarters, 50-cent max bet, double diamond, 3 reel machine, 50-cent max bet. It still exists. Not as many, but they're there. People don't want that. People want fancy video games with fancy bonuses and the flashing and huff your puff and all of these games. Not knocking any of them, but those games have a volatility that goes way up, way go down. So it's a lot easier to have a big streak where you're not winning anything. And if you don't have the budget to kind of maintain that, that's going to happen. But the old style Vegas is still there to answer the question if you're prepared to gamble. Now, I have my own personal things at my age and where I tend to stay or whatever. But yeah, that is covered. And if you're willing, now, if you're not willing to do that, then my advice for people is very simple. Do your homework, do your research. Because no town is fun when you're broke. And Vegas is probably worse than all if you're doing that. So again, do your budgeting. But you may be surprised if you are a gambler that how relatively little gambling. And again, I don't have the budget. I don't have the bankroll that I'm going to be comped at places like, the Wynn and Bellagio and the super luxurious places. But when you get to my age, you realize a casino is a casino. And coming back to, like what I say, liking to play video poker machines, I know what the paybacks are. Because by law, even on slot machines, the pay tables have to be displayed. Now, in a slot machine, 2 identical pay tables might have completely different paybacks because the way it's programmed in behind. On a poker machine, you can instantly see what it is. Why? Because the poker game is based on a 52-card deck, 53 cards if you have a joker involved, and that's straight mathematics. So the way casinos mess around with the payback, the way they mess around with the percentage return to player is by changing the payback on specific hands. So a full house will pay so much on this percentage, it'll pay less on a lower percentage. But that's there. And there are free video sites that are free and you can download them. I'll tell you exactly what that payback is. So that's, number one, and doing that. And, again, don't be afraid to go up to a casino host if you are a player and say, hey, I'm playing. Have I earned anything? And, so back to the old thing, and I'm going to wrap this up. And if you enjoyed any part of this, you want me to share some more of my insights on Vegas, I am going to upload some of the highlights of this past trip, and I'm already planning the next trip. It might be secret, it might not, I don't know. Again, I had my personal reasons for doing this, but that's my feeling on what's happened to Vegas. Has it changed? Yes. But I don't believe it changed just because Vegas decided to be chintzy and cheap and screw the little guy. Because that business model worked for so many years, but it started to disappear and Vegas changed accordingly. The modern 20 to 30-year-old who they're trying to target, they want, A-list performers and see what they're doing. They're bringing in sporting sports events, the F1, all the major sports are there except basketball. Basketball will be there soon. So they're changing. Again, not for people like me, but for the younger people that they're hoping to turn into regular Vegas visitors. So I don't disagree with what has happened to Vegas. It has definitely changed. I might have a difference of opinion of why that changed. Thank you so much for watching, and everyone have a wonderful day. And again, I'd love to hear your comments. And if you care anything about my opinion and you want to hear more, let me know. I'll create more videos like this. Thank you so much. Bye now.